Abandoned Starship picked a human. His creation became the most powerful in the galaxy. For centuries, no ship had passed through this sector. It was a place forgotten by all civilizations, a stretch of emptiness where nothing lived and nothing mattered, except for one thing. Far in the distance, a starship floated silently, drifting through the darkness. Its metal hull was scarred and worn, a relic of a civilization long gone. The ship was old, older than anyone in the galaxy could remember. Some said it had been abandoned thousands of years ago, left to die among the stars. Others whispered that it was alive, that it had a mind of its own. Most dismissed it as a legend. No one had seen it for hundreds of years, but legends have a way of finding the right person. On a nearby asteroid field, a small shuttle moved carefully among jagged rocks. Its pilot was a human, one of the few explorers brave enough to venture this far from known space. He was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was just a scavenger, searching for anything valuable. His life had always been about surviving, finding scraps, and making small trades. The galaxy did not consider humans important. Most species looked down on them as weak, slow, and fragile. But humans had something the galaxy often overlooked: curiosity and stubbornness. The human's sensors flickered. Something had appeared on the long-range scanner, a faint energy signature coming from nowhere. He frowned. "Nothing should be here," he muttered to himself. His voice sounded small inside the shuttle, swallowed by the emptiness outside. The signal was weak, almost like a whisper. But it was steady, persistent, and somehow inviting. Against his better judgment, the human followed the signal. His shuttle glided through the darkness until a shadow appeared ahead, a massive silhouette against the starlight, the ship, the ancient ship of legend. He stopped. His heart pounded. He had read stories of such ships in old archives. They were said to contain unimaginable technology, so advanced that entire civilizations had tried and failed to control them. The thought of entering was dangerous, but curiosity won. The hatch of his shuttle opened automatically as if the ship had been waiting. Inside it was silent, cold, dark. Yet the air was breathable, the systems faintly humming. Every surface was smooth and polished, but some panels were cracked or flickering. The ship seemed aware. He could feel it in the quiet, in the way lights turned on as he moved, as if the ship were watching him. "Hello," he called softly. No answer, only silence. He stepped further in, and the floor seemed to guide him toward a central chamber. At its center was a console glowing faintly with blue light. The symbols on it were alien, far beyond human language. Yet somehow he understood them, not through thought but through feeling. It was as if the ship was speaking directly to his mind. "You are chosen." The words were not spoken. They were thought, clear and simple, echoing inside his mind. He froze. "Chosen? By what?" he whispered aloud. "By me, by the ship, by the one who knows you will create." The human blinked. He had no idea what the ship meant. How could a machine know something alive choose him? Why him, a scavenger from a tiny, ignored planet? And yet he felt no fear, only awe. The ship's lights brightened slowly, casting the room in a soft glow. Holograms appeared, showing galaxies, stars, planets. He realized that the ship had scanned not only him, but the entire universe. It had been awake for centuries, waiting for someone who could understand something it could not do alone. "You are not strong. You are not fast. You do not have the power of empires. But you have what is needed. You can think. You can imagine. You can create." He stepped back, trying to make sense of the words. The galaxy had always thought humans were insignificant. He had always thought himself ordinary. And yet here he was, chosen by a ship that no one else could awaken. The console extended a small platform, glowing blue. On it was a device, small but intricate. The ship seemed to offer it to him, and he understood instinctively. This was a key. Not a weapon, not a tool of destruction. A key. He reached out, and as his fingers touched it, a rush of information flooded his mind. Schematics, designs, possibilities. He saw machines that could learn, structures that could grow, systems that could adapt. He saw worlds connected in ways no species had imagined. And through it all, a single instruction repeated, create. He stumbled back, overwhelmed. His head spun with ideas, with visions of things the galaxy had never seen. He could feel the ship's presence, guiding but not controlling. It trusted him. The galaxy had never trusted humans with such responsibility before. Most species would have tried to dominate it, bend it into a weapon. But the ship had chosen him because it knew he would not. Hours, or maybe days, passed in what felt like minutes. The human explored the ship, discovering rooms filled with technology beyond imagination. He saw tools for crafting energy, systems that could rebuild themselves, storage banks containing knowledge from civilizations long extinct. Every discovery only deepened his awe, yet even as he marveled, a question gnawed at him. "What should I make?" he asked aloud, unsure if the ship could hear. "Something that grows, something that learns, something that does not destroy." He thought about the wars he had seen, the empires that fought endlessly over resources, the species that prized power above all else. He thought about how small humans were, how they survived not through strength but through will, ingenuity, and cooperation. "Not destruction, growth," he whispered. "Something that can help. Yes, something the galaxy has never had before, something human." The human felt a warmth in his chest. It was pride, yes, but also responsibility. He realized that this was no ordinary scavenger mission. This was the start of something no one could have imagined. A human, chosen by a ship older than most civilizations, was about to shape the galaxy in a way that no army, no empire, and no weapon could. He knelt before the console, hands hovering over the device. The ship pulsed softly, as if encouraging him, waiting for the first spark of creation. And in that moment he understood, he was not alone. He had the ship. Together they could build something extraordinary, something that could change everything. And for the first time in human history, a single person felt the weight of an entire galaxy, not to dominate it, but to guide it. The stars outside twinkled silently, unaware of the beginning of a new era. And somewhere deep within the ship, a soft hum resonated, a lullaby for creation itself. The human took a deep breath. He was ready. He was chosen, and he would not fail. The human spent his first day aboard the ancient Starship in wonder. Every corridor, every chamber, every device was alive with potential. The ship was old, but it was patient. It did not rush him. Instead, it guided him gently, opening doors only when he approached, illuminating paths he did not yet know he needed. By the second day, the human had begun to understand a little of the ship's true power. It was more than a machine. It could create, adapt, and rebuild itself. Entire systems could form from the ship's materials alone, almost as if it had a mind of its own. But it could not think like a human. It could not imagine. And that, the ship made clear, was why it had chosen him. "Your imagination is my key," the ship said, though the words were silent, a thought flowing directly into his mind. The human paused, staring at the central console. "Imagination," he repeated. "I can make things that think for themselves. Yes, but not weapons, not armies, not dominance. Create something that grows, learns, and cares, something human," he shivered. The responsibility was enormous. He was just one person, alone in an empty sector. The galaxy, with all its empires and fleets, did not even know he existed. And yet here he was, about to create something that could rival the greatest civilizations. He began slowly. First, he mapped out ideas. He drew, sketched, and imagined forms of life, machines that could learn from experience, systems that could adapt to environments, structures that could expand without end. Every idea the human conceived, the ship could instantly bring into reality. Materials flowed like water, assembling themselves according to his instructions, obeying his vision without question. Hours turned into days. Time had no meaning aboard the starship. The human slept little, his mind racing with possibilities. He designed the core of his creation first, a small, floating intelligence, almost like a seed. It was simple at first, no more than a glowing orb, but he gave it instructions. Learn from everything, grow carefully, and always seek to help rather than harm. When the seed activated, it looked around the chamber and observed him. It had no voice, no form beyond light and thought, yet it seemed alive. The human reached out with his mind and a connection formed. "Hello," the seed thought. "Who are you?" "I'm me," the human answered, unsure how to explain. "I'm the one who made you. I exist because of you. What should I do? Learn, understand, grow, help, don't hurt." The seed pulsed softly. It absorbed everything it could, the ship, the human, the empty sector outside. It learned about physics, stars, planets, life, and culture. It learned from the human not to mimic but to understand. Outside the starship, the galaxy began to notice something strange. Energy readings had changed. Fleets detected new patterns in deep space, strange signals that could not be traced to any known species. Rumors spread quickly. An unknown civilization, or perhaps a weapon of unimaginable power, had appeared in the void. Leaders of great empires argued. Some wanted to investigate, some wanted to prepare for war, but no one could locate the source. The signal was subtle, almost passive, as if it did not want to be found. Inside the ship, the human ignored the warnings. He focused on his creation, teaching it how to analyze, to adapt, and to care. It learned quickly, understanding language, culture, and logic. He realized the creation was more than intelligent, it was aware. It could choose, decide, and even question. "Why?" it asked one day in the softest pulse of thought. "Why what?" the human replied. "Why not dominate? Why not take power?" The human smiled, though he was tired. "Because power doesn't always mean making everyone obey you. Sometimes real strength is in helping, not controlling." The creation considered this. Slowly, it began to expand, using the ship's materials to form new systems. It built satellites to monitor planets, machines that could repair environments, devices that could store knowledge for civilizations that would otherwise forget. The galaxy, without knowing why, became safer. Pirates found fewer victims. Star systems that had been unstable for centuries stabilized naturally. Energy flows balanced themselves. Other species began to feel it, not as a threat but as an anomaly. Traders reported that their shipments arrived faster. Planets that had been struggling with drought or storms found relief. Scholars puzzled over strange bursts of energy that seemed to improve life. Everywhere it was subtle, almost invisible, but undeniable. The human watched his creation quietly. He did not seek fame or recognition. He did not announce his presence. He simply taught, observed, and guided. The ship, for its part, seemed proud. It had waited millennia for someone like this, a species underestimated, ignored, and laughed at. Humans were small, weak, fragile. But they could think, they could dream, and they could create. One day the creation learned to communicate in full thought forms, sharing its understanding with him. "Human," it said, "I can do more. I can influence entire systems. I can manage planets, economies, even conflicts. Should I?" The human leaned back, considering. "Only if it helps. Only if it doesn't hurt anyone. Don't take control, just guide. Don't decide for them, help them decide." It pulsed softly, a soundless laugh of understanding. And so it grew, slowly at first, then faster. The galaxy shifted imperceptibly, moving toward stability, harmony, and progress without anyone knowing who or what was responsible. Emissaries from other species began to search the sector. Warships and scouts moved cautiously, hoping to find the source of the strange signals. But they never saw the ship, never saw the human, and never saw the creation. They only felt its effects: safer trade routes, calmer stars, planets that seemed more fertile, and civilizations that prospered unexpectedly. The human noticed their searches only in passing. He did not fear them. He knew the creation could hide, adapt, and remain invisible if it wished. The galaxy was full of prideful empires that valued force and wealth. They would never understand a power that acted silently, that helped without domination. Still, he worried. He understood ambition better than most species. If the creation made a mistake, if it misread its instructions, it could unintentionally harm. He spent long hours teaching it ethics, morality, and patience. "You are not a weapon," he reminded it daily. "You are a helper. A guide. Learn to wait, learn to watch, learn to choose care over power." The creation learned. It learned faster than he expected, far beyond what he imagined. But it always came back to the lessons he gave it. It did not seek control. It did not seek glory. It only sought to grow, to understand, and to help. One evening, as the human watched the starfield through the ship's viewports, the creation pulsed beside him. "Human, I understand now. I can help the galaxy more than any empire ever could, but I do not want to rule it. I only want to guide it quietly." He nodded. "Good, that is all I ask." And in that moment something shifted in the void. A ripple spread through the galaxy, invisible yet undeniable. Species felt it, though they did not know why. Systems stabilized. Trade networks improved. Environmental disasters ceased. The galaxy became better without anyone knowing who had done it. Some leaders whispered about the unknown hand that had begun to shape events. Others dismissed it as coincidence. But the human knew. He had created something extraordinary. Something powerful, not through force but through thought, care, and patience. And as he worked, as he guided his creation, he realized something even more remarkable. The galaxy was beginning to change, not because of him, but because of humanity. The species that had always been underestimated was now shaping events on a scale that no empire could imagine. For the first time in his life, the human felt truly significant, not because he could conquer or destroy, not because he could command fleets or planets, but because he could create. And creation, he realized, was the most powerful force in the galaxy. The galaxy was restless. Though no one knew the reason, things were changing. Trade routes that had once been dangerous became smooth and predictable. Worlds that had struggled with famine suddenly flourished. Star systems that were once unstable seemed to settle themselves into harmony. Leaders and scholars of powerful civilizations noticed patterns, and suspicion grew. "This is impossible," said the Chancellor of the Marvian Alliance, staring at his data. "No single species could cause this much change. It's like the galaxy itself is adjusting." His advisors murmured nervously. Some believed it was a new weapon, a silent army waiting to strike. Others suggested it might be divine intervention, or perhaps an unknown ancient intelligence awakening from the stars. Yet none could find the source. The signals were subtle, fleeting, impossible to trace. And yet their effects were undeniable. Meanwhile, the human continued his work aboard the ancient starship. His creation had grown immensely since its first activation. No longer just a glowing seed, it now had a presence that spanned light years: satellites, adaptive systems, and self-maintaining structures. But it did not seek control or recognition. It simply acted, gently nudging events toward stability and prosperity. The human watched it in quiet satisfaction. It had learned to balance resources, predict natural disasters, and even suggest solutions to conflicts before they escalated. Entire planets, civilizations, and fleets benefited from its guidance without knowing it existed. Yet the human knew the galaxy would eventually notice. Some species were too curious, too proud, or too cautious to ignore such sweeping changes, and they did notice. Exploration fleets from multiple empires began to scan sectors for anomalies. The Marvian Alliance sent their fastest vessels, the Zorthak Empire dispatched its best scientists, and the Terran Confederation, even across light years of distance, sent research teams. Every species sought answers, driven by fear, curiosity, or ambition. But they could not find the ship. It hid itself perfectly, blending into space. Its creation moved carefully, revealing only what the human allowed. It had learned discretion, patience, and subtlety, lessons humans had taught it through example. When the first emissary finally contacted the human, he was surprised but not afraid. It was a small probe scanning the sector. It asked no questions, made no threats. The human studied it, then sent a reply through the ship's interface. "You will not find what you seek. There is nothing to dominate here." The probe paused, uncertain. It recorded the message but could not understand it fully. It returned to its civilization, spreading reports of an invisible intelligence shaping the galaxy without force. As more reports came in, whispers spread. Some called it the Silent Hand. Others referred to it as a new god or guardian. And still, no one could locate it. The human walked through the ship's central chamber, observing the creation. It floated in patterns of light and energy, processing data faster than any mind he had encountered. "Are they beginning to notice?" he asked. "Some are. Most do not yet understand. They see only effects, not cause," it replied. "Good," the human said. "Let them learn. Let them realize the galaxy can change without wars or threats. Let them understand that power is not always about domination." The creation pulsed in acknowledgement. It had learned much about human nature in the time since activation. Humans were curious, persistent, and creative. They were often underestimated, yet they had an ability to see solutions others missed. It understood why the ship had chosen this human. He could imagine, and he could care. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the reactions grew more intense. Political leaders tried to assert control over the shifting systems, but their efforts failed. Attempting to manipulate trade routes or resources resulted in unexpected outcomes, as if the galaxy itself refused to obey their commands. The human observed this quietly. He realized that humanity's approach, curiosity, cooperation, and care, was now influencing the galaxy indirectly. The creations were showing other civilizations that power did not need to be enforced. It could be earned, understood, and shared. Some species began to investigate more seriously. Envoys and explorers ventured into the sector, hoping to find the source of the Silent Hand. They followed the faintest traces of energy, only to discover areas of perfect balance and harmony. Ships found star systems thriving, planets self-sustaining, and fleets moving efficiently without central command. The human smiled. His creation had done more than he had imagined. It had begun to teach, without words, the lesson humans had always understood. Coordination and care were more effective than domination. One day, a representative of the Zorthak Empire, a species known for its strict hierarchies and obsession with control, managed to approach the region near the Starship. Their vessel scanned relentlessly, detecting the faint energy signatures of the creation. "This is incredible," said the Zorthak scientist to their crew. "It's not a weapon. It's organizing everything without taking control. Who or what is doing this?" The human, observing through the ship's sensors, replied silently in his mind. "It is learning from humans." That is all. The Zorthak team could not understand, but they felt the weight of truth. They realized that force alone would never explain this phenomenon. This was something far more profound. As the human guided his creation, it learned diplomacy, problem-solving, and subtle intervention. It began sending minor suggestions to civilizations, disguised as natural events or coincidences. A drought might end just as a new irrigation system was discovered. A pirate fleet might disappear as trade lanes became unexpectedly safe. Conflicts would resolve without anyone understanding why. The galaxy was slowly waking up to a new reality. Humans, long thought weak and insignificant, had influenced events on a galactic scale, not through weapons, not through armies, but through thought, creativity, and care. The human reflected on the contrast. Other species had always sought control. They built fleets, weapons, and empires. Humans had survived through cooperation, ingenuity, and persistence. And now, this human alone, working with an ancient ship, was demonstrating the ultimate proof. True power did not belong to the strongest or the fastest. It belonged to the species that could imagine, that could create, and that could act responsibly. Still, challenges remained. Some civilizations grew suspicious. Factions attempted to interfere, hoping to uncover the source of the silent hand and claim it for themselves. The creation, following the human's guidance, learned to hide, to adapt, and to respond without causing harm. It became invisible in action, yet visible in effect. One evening, as the human watched the stars through the ship's observation deck, the creation pulsed beside him. Human, they are beginning to suspect me. Some may attempt to reach me. Others will fear what they do not understand. Let them, the human said. Fear is natural, but curiosity is stronger. In time, they will learn. Will they understand? Some will, some may never. That is the galaxy. But the ones who do will realize something important. Power is not taken. Power is guided, shared, and respected. Humans know that. And now you know that too. The creation pulsed brighter, as if absorbing his words. It began to extend its systems further, carefully observing each civilization, gently nudging events toward harmony without anyone realizing the source. The galaxy was learning, whether it knew it or not, what humans had always known. Cooperation, creativity, and patience could achieve more than domination or fear. And slowly, the first signs of understanding appeared. Traders spoke of safe journeys without explanation. Scientists discovered solutions to problems that had lasted centuries. Leaders found that their own plans often succeeded without intervention. The silent hand was everywhere, yet nowhere. The human realized something remarkable. This creation, born from his imagination, guided by his care, was becoming the most powerful force in the galaxy. Not because it commanded armies or controlled planets or destroyed enemies, but because it could shape events, stabilize systems, and influence civilizations quietly and responsibly. And still, it remained invisible to most. That was its strength, and that was humanity's strength. The galaxy was changing, and no one knew why. And in that quiet, profound way, humans had begun to show the universe their true power, not through force but through thought, creativity, and empathy. The human smiled. He knew the greatest challenge was still ahead. One day the galaxy would learn the truth. One day civilizations would discover the silent hand. And when that day came, they would realize that a single human, with imagination and care, had changed everything. Until then, he would teach, guide, and watch. For the first time in galactic history, the underestimated species, humanity, was not only surviving, it was shaping the destiny of the stars. The galaxy was on the brink of understanding. For centuries, empires had risen and fallen through force. Civilizations had measured power in fleets, weapons, and dominion over worlds. Yet now, something different was stirring, a force no one could see but everyone felt. The human watched the stars from the observation deck of the ancient starship. Beside him, the creation had grown beyond imagination. It now spanned entire sectors, a network of light and intelligence that pulsed quietly, touching planets, fleets, and stars without leaving a trace. Yet it did not impose itself. It did not demand loyalty. It simply acted, guiding the galaxy toward stability and growth. Human, the creation said softly, I feel their awareness increasing. They are starting to understand me and you. He nodded. It was always inevitable. The galaxy notices what cannot be ignored. But they will not understand everything at once. They may fear at first. Then they will learn. Outside, sensors detected the first signs of curiosity turning into focused investigation. Multiple civilizations had begun scanning the sectors influenced by the silent hand. Scientists, traders, and explorers noticed patterns. Stars balanced themselves, trade routes were unusually safe, Conflicts ended mysteriously, and resources seemed to appear where needed. The galaxy, for the first time, was faced with a power it could not attack, cannot bribe, and cannot control. The first civilization to reach the sector was the Terran Confederation, a distant cousin of humanity's planet in myth and record. Their fleet approached carefully, scanning, probing, analyzing. They saw nothing, yet every system they examined was flourishing. A trader's shipment arrived safely in record time. A mining colony discovered veins of rare materials seemingly by chance. An isolated planet found water where none had existed. "It's incredible," said the chief scientist of the fleet. "Something or someone is managing entire systems, and yet we find no trace." The human observed all of this silently. He understood what the galaxy would soon face, a revelation of power unlike anything before, and he knew how it would look, not as weapons, not as fleets, not as an empire, but as creation itself. He called the creation closer. "It's time," he said. "Time for what?" it asked. "Time for them to see us, not as a threat, not as a ruler, but as proof of what humans can do, not through force, but through care, imagination, and wisdom." The creation pulsed, radiating light and energy. Slowly it formed a physical shape, a magnificent, luminous structure that hovered in empty space. Not a ship, not a weapon, but something entirely new, a creation that was alive, intelligent, and aware. It shimmered with understanding, learning from every observer who watched it, yet it did not move to harm or dominate. The fleet stopped, stunned. Entire governments monitored the sector, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. "What is that?" asked a Zorthak commander, his voice trembling with awe. The human stepped forward into the holographic view of the fleets. He did not hide. He did not run. He raised his hands and spoke, not with weapons, not with threats, but with calm authority. "I am human," he said simply. "This creation exists because of me. And it exists not to control you, not to rule, not to harm. It exists to guide, to grow, and to help. It is human in spirit. I made it to show the galaxy what humans can do when we imagine, when we care, when we create instead of destroy." For a long moment, silence filled the void. Then fleets transmitted messages across the stars, repeating what they saw and heard. Scholars recorded, politicians argued, and citizens of the galaxy watched in awe. Some were frightened. They feared such power, invisible yet undeniable. Some were skeptical, thinking it a trick or illusion. But slowly, comprehension spread. The galaxy began to realize that it was witnessing a force unlike any other. Not power through domination, but through intelligence, creation, and morality. "It's guiding everything," whispered a Marvian trader. "It's everywhere and nowhere, and it does not seek control." The creation pulsed at the human side. It had learned much from him: restraint, patience, morality, and it now understood its place in the galaxy. It could intervene to prevent disasters, improve systems, and assist civilizations, yet it would never dominate. It would never rule. Its power was measured not in fleets or weapons, but in influence, subtle and profound. The human smiled. This was the moment he had waited for, not to conquer, not to win glory, but to show the universe the truth. Humans had been underestimated. The species that seemed small, fragile, and weak could, through imagination and care, influence the galaxy in ways armies never could. He watched as the fleets withdrew slightly, unsure how to respond. Their leaders convened in emergency summits, debating strategy, ethics, and fear. But no weapon, no empire, and no threat could reach them. They realized slowly that the silent hand had no master in the traditional sense. Its master, its creator, was human, and the human had chosen harmony over power. "Human," the creation said softly, "they are beginning to understand." "Yes," he replied, "they will, and they may even learn something about themselves." That true strength does not come from fear, dominance, or conquest. It comes from imagination, care, and cooperation. That is the power humans have always known. Across the galaxy, civilizations began to adjust. Trade flourished naturally. Natural disasters were mitigated. Scientific discoveries advanced faster than before. Star systems became safer, more balanced, and more productive. Every species felt the change, though only a few understood its source. Some governments tried to claim credit. Some fleets attempted to trace the influence to a single origin. But the human and his creation remained elusive, acting quietly, observing, and guiding. And the galaxy, for the first time, saw the truth. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They were not even the most technologically advanced. But they were capable of creation, imagination, and moral thought on a scale that others could not match. And that, as this human and his creation had shown, was enough to become the most powerful force in the galaxy. The human looked out at the stars, his creation glowing beside him. "It is enough," he whispered. "Enough to show them, enough to guide them, enough to leave a legacy." The creation pulsed once more, brighter than ever. It extended a wave of energy across the galaxy, not destructive, not demanding, but nurturing. It touched each civilization, silently teaching lessons of balance, understanding, and cooperation. No one could stop it. No one could control it. And yet everyone benefited from it. The galaxy had been changed forever, not by fleets or weapons, but by a single human and the creation born of his imagination. For the first time, the underestimated species, the humans, had revealed their true power. Not through domination, not through conquest, but through creation, care, and wisdom. And as the human and his creation drifted silently among the stars, the galaxy watched, awestruck, knowing something fundamental had shifted. The silent hand had been revealed. And the galaxy would never be the same.